So I have a question here about another inappropriate father. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. This commenter asks, what about when your biological father jokingly says to you, you be weenie teasing? He has said this a few times on Facebook under my posts that are not even sexual pictures or intended to be. A lot of men would like my photos, always negative comments about my cellulite. Um, I'm sorry to hear that this is happening, but I think, if you put the question out there, there's a good chance that you probably already know the answer. And the answer is your father is highly inappropriate. Um, there, there are a number of fathers, and I'm not saying all daddies are bad or all men are bad. This isn't that. But this is specifically answering a question, which lets me know that a lot of you have fathers that are very lustful. And when you have people that are very lustful, they're very sexually preoccupied, which means that sex is always on the brain for them, even when things are, innocent, or not doesn't even warrant that. And so, unfortunately, because you are a girl and he is a man, and he is extending that to you, and so. When people jokingly say things like this, a lot of times they do it because they feel like you think the same way that they do. And a joke, for him to joke like that is a way to try and disguise his discomfort. And people will do this when they know what they're doing is highly inappropriate, but they're wanting to see what you will say. Essentially, they're testing the water for you. And if you don't say anything, they take that as a sign that you're okay with it. And I've said this a number of times on my posts. They take this as a sign that you're okay with it, and they can keep going, or they can do it more, and unfortunately in your case invite other men to do it. So it opens you up to be put on display for predators, even though you're doing something that doesn't warrant that. But he's looking for attention from you, and at the same time he's inviting negative attention, from other men to say, look at what we have here. And he's constantly scrutinizing your body because he's constantly looking at it. And he's looking at it, but the negative scrutiny in particular is an attempt to be a Jedi mind trick to deter you from ever feeling good about yourself, and deter you from ever being attractive or being respected or being loved appropriately by the right man. So therefore, if I invite other men to, slut shame or, be negative, even though you're none of those things, right? So I'm not implying that. Then you'll never feel good about yourself. You'll stay in the house. You will, close your blinds and lock your doors, and you'll never come outside. So that is a tactic that's used to keep you where you're at and you're comfortable, but it's also letting you know that there is some inappropriate thinking that is going on there. I'm 46 years old, and I can count, the number of times my father's ever told me that I'm penis teasing, talked about his penis, or, done any of those things. And that number's a zero. And it's not to make it about me, but it's, people can be sexually inappropriate. So he knows the difference between right and wrong, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Uh, you know, and for me, talking to you, I would invite you to consider, you know, maybe a question to yourself or maybe a question to your therapist, which I highly recommend therapy if you're not already in it. Um, you know, Something for you to think about is, why is he still allowed to have access to me in this way? In other words, why is your father still allowed to be on your Facebook or allowed to have any sort of, even if it's small, access to you or your body in a way where he can comment like that? and what are you doing to correct or stop the behavior? And that correction could be like, you know what, that's inappropriate. You don't need to do that. Blocking him from Facebook, but there's a number of things that you can do to correct that behavior and shut it down. Sometimes our parents could be our worst enemies, and you need to learn how to take the title away, meaning take the title of dad away and treat him just like you would a disrespectful stranger on the street. So if a stranger on the street came up to you and said, "Ooh, girl, you're weenie teasing," that kind of stuff, what would you say? And you need to treat it exactly like that. If a stranger up on the street came and talked to you about your cellulite, what would you say or how would you respond to that? Right. And that's kind of how you have to look at it, because he's putting himself in that position. And he's putting himself in a position where he should be the way that you should be thinking about it. And I can't tell people what they should and shouldn't do. I shouldn't say that because I'm not you. But, when people are disrespectful, the only way they're going to know that they're disrespectful is by you setting the boundaries and not allowing them to have the same amount of access to you, and shutting conversations like that down. It's this is fathers, brothers, cousins, bosses, whatever the case may be, any time this happens. So I want to thank you for asking this question and putting this out there. I know there's probably a lot of people who haven't commented, but who have saved and who've looked at this post. And unfortunately, some people have sent me quite a few messages saying that they have experienced something similar. So thanks for sharing, if for no other reason to help other people that maybe don't have the words or who are ashamed or intimidated by coming forward and asking questions. So thanks so much. And if you like this, definitely subscribe to my podcast, which will be coming out with a new episode soon, and my newsletter as well, linked in my bio. Thanks so much.